Hello, boys and girls. Today is Tuesday, August 18th, 2020. This is your second video that you should be watching for Tuesday's lesson for writing class. Our objective in this video is setting up our writer's notebooks. There is not a do now and there is not an assign yourself. Let's get started. Okay, we're going to start off today's lesson by reading a chapter out of this book called A Writer's Notebook by Ralph Fletcher. Ralph Fletcher is a professional author. He's published lots of books and articles in newspapers and journals, and he wrote this book for young students just like you to help you understand how to use your writer's notebook. So let's get to reading. Chapter 1. What is a writer's notebook anyway? Once, when I was a boy, a telephone repair truck pulled up in front of our house and two workers got out. They had come to lay a telephone cable. My brothers and sisters and I watched them work hard for almost 3 hours digging a long, narrow ditch in our backyard. Finally, when it was starting to get dark, they left the ditch and went home, promising to return and finish the job the next morning. So boys and girls, the telephone cables they were laying, those would connect to those big tall poles that you might see outside with wires maybe. Back in the day before cell phones, all we had was what was called landlines, and we had to have cables connecting to our houses so that our phones would work, believe it or not. Okay, let's keep reading. We're on the second paragraph. Early the following morning, I went outside and looked into that empty ditch. But it wasn't empty at all. I was amazed to find all sorts of small animals caught in there. 4 toads, 2 frogs, even a small box turtle. They must have wandered into that ditch, gotten stuck there, and been unable to climb back out. I let all the animals go. The 2 workers returned, finished laying the telephone cable, and covered up the ditch. That got me thinking. The next day, I decided to dig my own ditch. I dug it at the edge of the woods. I didn't think Dad would have appreciated seeing another ditch in our lawn, and made it about 1 foot wide, 10 feet long, and 8 inches deep. Next morning, I hurried outside and discovered that, yes, the same thing had happened. A number of small creatures had been caught in there. A writer's notebook is like that ditch, an empty space you dig in your busy life, a space that will fill up with all sorts of fascinating little creatures. If you dig it, they will come. You'll be amazed by what you catch there. Writing is what I do for my job. I've written books for adults and books for young readers. I've published a novel, several books of poetry, short stories, and books for teachers on how to teach writing. In this book, I want to explore with you, scholars, young kids, the most important tool I use, my writer's notebook. Keeping a writer's notebook is one of the best ways I know of living a writing kind of life. What is a writer's notebook anyway? Let's start by talking about what it's not. A writer's notebook is not a diary. Today it is raining. We have a substitute teacher named Miss Pampanella. She seems very nice. We are going to have gym right before lunch. It is not a reading journal in which your teacher tells you to summarize the main idea of a book or write a letter to a character. A writer's notebook is different from any journal you've ever kept before. Writers are pretty ordinary people. They have favorite songs, favorite movies, favorite TV shows. Writers have evil big sisters and occasionally sweet ones. They get good or not so good grades, take vacations, paint their houses. Writers are like other people, except for at least one important difference. Other people have daily thoughts and feelings, notice this sky or that smell, but they don't do much about it. All those thoughts, feelings, sensations, and opinions pass through them like the air they breathe. Not writers. Writers react, and writers need a place to record those reactions. That's what the writer's notebook is for. It gives you a place to write down what makes you angry, or sad, or amazed, to write down what you noticed and don't want to forget, to record exactly what your grandmother whispered in your ear before she said goodbye for the last time. A writer's notebook gives you a place to live like a writer, not just in school during writing time, but wherever you are at any time of day. A few years ago, I was walking in Wheeling, Illinois, and I saw a rainbow so enormous it seemed to stretch from one horizon to the other, but there was something wrong with it. The topmost arch was missing. I came back to my hotel room, took out my notebook, and wrote. These are the words that he wrote. The skies are so huge in the Midwest. They just don't make skies like this back east. Today, I saw a rainbow, beautiful and damaged. The top part washed away, gone. Never seen anything like it. Wonder what makes that happen. Had the winds swept away the highest clouds? Months later, I began writing a series of love poems. I reread my notebook and found that entry. The words, a rainbow, beautiful, and damage, seemed to jump off the page. I used that phrase like a piece of flint to spark the sad poem I wrote. First flight. All the way home, I tried to forget how your lip twitched, how your face flinched. I walked alone under a huge rainbow, beautiful and damaged. Upper arch worn away, just two broken pieces dangling from the sky. What does a writer's notebook look like? There's really no right answer for this, except that your writer's notebook should reflect your personality. Some writers prefer a pad small enough to stick in a back pocket. Others have beautiful notebooks with wildflowers on their covers, and others with plain brown covers. My wife's notebook has unlined pages because she likes to sketch in it, as well as write. My notebook is really supposed to be a business ledger with lined, numbered pages. It has a hardcover and a very sturdy binding, which is good because I drag it with me wherever I go, and it gets banged up a lot. A notebook doesn't even have to be made from paper, really. Often I work on my notebook computer while I'm flying from one city to the next. But a notebook doesn't have to be expensive or fancy. A plain notebook from the stationery store will do just fine. I hope you'll get yourself some kind of notebook and begin to write in it on a regular basis. In this book, I suggest lots of ways you can use your writer's notebook to sift and collect important things from your life, stuff that may prove valuable and later in writing. We'll also look at ways to reread your notebook and use what you have collected to generate your own polished writing. In this book, you'll find many examples from my writer's notebook, the notebooks of published writers, and the notebooks of young writers like you. By sharing all of these examples, I hope to give you an idea of what's possible. Use the ideas you find here as springboards into what you can do with your own notebook. Your notebook is uniquely yours, like your wallet or backpack. Only you can decide what to put in it. You probably won't use every idea you find in this book. If an idea doesn't grab you, just move on to the next chapter. If you read an idea that appeals to you, try it out in your own notebook. Experiment. When you come right down to it, a writer's notebook is nothing more than a blank book. But within those pages, you've got a powerful tool for writing and living. In the pages that follow, we'll explore ways you can use your notebook so you can begin to live like a writer. I love reading Ralph Fletcher's A Writer's Notebook. It always makes me so excited to pull out my own notebook and get to writing. This school year, you will keep a writer's notebook for this writing class. Now, let's review what a writer's notebook is. A writer's notebook is a place to collect ideas. It helps you live a writing life. A writer's notebook is not a diary. It's a place to record your reactions, sad, amazed, enthusiastic, happy. And it is something that you can use anywhere. Now let's take a look at a few examples of writer's notebooks. Now let's take a look at this writer's notebook. This person here has done a lot of planning on this page. She's set out a timeline of when her characters are going to do different things. She's written some titles in. She's decided what the plots are going to be, how what's called a prophecy is going to intertwine, and she has all kinds of details organized on this page. Notice how she just used a plain piece of loose notebook paper and a pen. A writer's notebook does not have to be anything fancy at all, boys and girls. It's the start of your writing. It's the place where you put down the ideas that are in your head so that you begin the process of writing. Now, let's see who this notebook belongs to. J.K. Rowling. So this little piece of paper with blue pen on it actually turned into this amazing book series that's widely successful now. This goes to show that anybody and everybody is a writer. All you need is a piece of paper and a pen, or a computer to type on. Let's look at another example of a writer's notebook. Here's another example of a writer's notebook. I think this one is just beautiful. Nobody says that your writer's notebook just has to be writing. It could also have some artwork in it. This is your space to be creative. Now let me set this rule for you though. If you're doing random drawings that don't match your words, that doesn't belong in there. Whenever you do artwork, it should match what you're writing. Now let's see who this beautiful notebook belongs to. Frida Kahlo. She is both an artist and a writer, and she's actually pretty famous too. Do you recognize her? Let's look at another example of a writer's notebook. Okay, now let's look at this writer's notebook. It's actually pretty small. Small enough to where it could fit in your front pocket. I bet this writer carried her around in his pocket wherever he went, so that whenever inspiration struck, he could stop and get to writing. Now, you may not recognize this author, but I want to make one really important point here. Look how tiny his notebook is, and look how big the book that he wrote is. Big things can come in small packages, boys and girls. Now, this author's name is Jack Kerouac, and he's a famous author for some adult level books. Maybe you can read those one day. On your school supply list, it said notebooks. I want you to pick one notebook that is going to be dedicated for your writing class. You won't use it for anything else. This is your special place for collecting your thoughts and ideas for writing. Make sure that the book you have has nothing else in it, and you're going to be using this as your writer's notebook for the whole school year. For the rest of today's writing time, I want you to personalize your writer's notebook. I want you to do something to the cover that shows you this is your notebook for writing class. It's your writer's notebook, and show that it belongs to you. So on the pictures here, you can see how these students personalized their writer's notebooks. They put their name on the front and they added some stickers. Or these students on the other side there added some photographs that they printed out. You can do that too. Or if you just want to write your name on the front and write writer's notebook, that's okay. So during writing time, your job is to finish decorating and personalizing your writer's notebook. Have fun! I can't wait to see them in class tomorrow.